Welcome back to CRG. This week we're going to take a look at this old Macintosh Performa 630. I've had this machine in my collection now for several years and done absolutely nothing with it. Well, other than rob the CD drive out of it to fix my 3DO. Uses exactly the same CD mechanism. And since it's Macintosh on YouTube this month, I thought that would be the perfect opportunity to finally take a look at this machine. And the first problem we need to address is the yellowing. You can see on the top cover here where the monitor once lived. This is the original color of this machine. It has yellowed quite a bit, quite the contrast there. So let's get it stripped down, get all these plastics off and get them into the tub of our retrobraiding solution. Actually getting this thing apart though, well, that is a bit of a task in itself, because Apple certainly built this machine like a tank. This back section here just unclips, and then if we remove these two screws and drop down this little lever here, that'll let us pull out the motherboard. Going to come back to this later, and we are going to do a complete recap of the board. Surface mount capacitors of this era are known to leak, so now's the time to change them. And because this thing uses a proprietary 15-pin monitor output, and of course I don't have the matching monitor, we're also going to have to make a cable. But let's continue stripping this down. So removing these two screws just lets this plastic section here drop off. And then removing the last two screws takes that final bit of plastic off the back. Thing is though, how do we get the rest of it apart? Well, if we flip the machine upside down and just leave this front section overhanging the desk, you can see these two tabs in here, and it certainly looks like someone has had a go with a screwdriver before. So I'm thinking these just want to bend. There we are. And that's the front off. There is unfortunately a nasty crack in it here and a bit of a gouge out of the plastic. There's not going to be very much I can do with that, I'm afraid. I can run a bit of glue into it to make sure the crack doesn't get any worse, and maybe try and sand this down a bit, but it is quite deep into the plastic, so other than finding a new front cover, I don't think there's going to be much we can do really. Let me just flip the machine back over again, and this top cover I think slides off. Question is, what direction does it take? It has to slide off to the back surely. Nope, it comes forward. Doesn't reveal an awful lot though. Sure it doesn't. The sides, at least they come off easy. Just pull them forward. So before the sun disappears, I'm going to go and mix up some of our retrobraiding solution and get all this plastic out in the sun, and hopefully we can bring it back a bit. It's not particularly bright here in Northern Ireland in the middle of March, but hopefully we'll get enough UV rays to be able to even lighten this a bit. So I'm just going to leave these here for a couple of days, try to make the best use of what little sun we have. Hopefully they'll get a bit brighter. Hello dog. Our motherboard then, and this machine is powered by the 68LC 040 processor from Motorola. The LC variant, I'm fairly sure, means there's no FPU on board. We do have one memory module here. Although I'm not 100% sure what capacity it is. At a guess, 4 megabytes. Don't really know. But hopefully, if we get this machine powered on later, we'll be able to find out. There are various expansion ports on the board, but I don't know an awful lot about Macintosh. This is the communication slot, presumably for network card or modem. An LCPDS slot. Absolutely no idea what that would do. Here we have a slot labeled J14. Not very descriptive. And then video in slot, so presumably for some sort of video capture card. Quite a nice little compact board, but there is one problem that I have just spotted, and it's around this old battery. And shame on me for not removing this battery several years ago when I first got this machine. We'll get it out of the way now, but you can definitely see some light corrosion around here. So I think we're just about catching this on time here. The corrosion looks like it's just starting to take place, and hopefully all I'll need to do to treat that is just use a little bit of white vinegar. So I've just got a cap full of it here. And we'll just pour it in and work it around a wee bit with the toothbrush and leave it sitting there for a while to try and do its thing. So the vinegar's been sitting on that for about 20 minutes or so. That should be enough time to let it deal with that light corrosion. It hasn't frothed up or anything. You would sometimes see that if the corrosion was quite heavy, the vinegar would sort of bubble, but that hasn't happened here. We do need to get that vinegar off though, because long term it will be just as bad for the board as the leaky battery. So this time it's a cap of our IPA. And again, we're just going to go around with the toothbrush and work it into the board to make sure we're getting that vinegar off. Then we'll just take a cotton bud and just rub over the area. And that will be pretty much it. As I say, the corrosion didn't look that bad. Doesn't look like it's eaten into any of the traces anywhere. So I think we've just caught it on time. Hopefully there's nothing to repair. I'll just continue mopping up with the cotton buds, and then we'll turn our attention to these capacitors. So how do we get these capacitors off the board? Well, there are generally two methods that you'll see. The first is just twist them off with a pair of pliers. Just grab the can, twist it, that'll break it off its legs. You can lift the can away, and then generally the legs are still there and you have to desolder them. The issue with doing that though is that you're putting a lot of mechanical force through the capacitor onto the pads on the board. And should those pads be weakened from either battery leakage or even leaking capacitors themselves, there is quite a high chance that those pads will simply lift off the board, turning your capacitor swap job into a repair job. The other method then is with hot air, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So we take our high temperature masking tape, mask off around all the capacitors. I'll just do these three here on camera quickly just to show you. And basically all you're doing with this is covering all the other little SMD components just to stop them getting blown away when we use the hot air. It'll also help to protect the likes of the plastic on these ports here. But because this stuff is so cheap, I like to use a double layer of it. We're then just going to take the heat gun and apply that hot air to these pads. Always keep the heat moving. And what we're trying to do is melt the solder to allow the capacitor to come away. There we are. There we are. 3 capacitors off really quickly and absolutely zero damage to the board. I'll just tidy these up then with a little bit of flux, desoldering braid and the iron. I'll take off any of the solder that's left and then we can just stick on the new capacitors. So for attaching these new capacitors, what I like to do is just tin up one of the pads. We'll then grab the cap and a pair of tweezers, heat the pad with the iron and just slide this capacitor into place. Sort of like that. And then we can go in on the other side. And just tack the capacitor in place. 1 down and 8 more to do. Right, all done. All the new caps are on and I've just cleaned up around each of them with a bit of IPA and cotton buds just to remove any leftover flux. So we'll put that to the side for now and we'll make a video cable. So this is our video output, this 15-pin D-sub. I just happen to have the male counterpart to it here. And what we're going to do is make up a cable to convert from that to VGA. So I've taken this cable here, cut one end off, build out each of these wires to see what pins they connect to on this side. And then using this schematic that I've found online, it's just going to be a case of making off the relevant wires onto the back of this. There's one little diode that we need to fit and that's it. Hopefully that'll give us a 15-pin Mac output to VGA. And yes, I know you can buy little adapter boards to do it, but they only seem to be available on eBay from Australia and there is no way I'm paying over £40 for such a simple little adapter when we can make our own for just the price of this. And through the magic of video editing, here's one I made earlier. So all that's left to do really is put this machine back together, then we can test that out and see if this machine even works. Just before we do that though, let's remove this top cover and give you a look at what's going on inside the case. So you just have to remove those 2 screws and then this metal cover, it slides forward also. So that reveals our power supply, video output board up here, floppy drive, and in behind that is our hard drive. Now, unlike other Apple devices that would use SCSI, the hard drive in here is just IDE. The CD drive though, which is missing, not going to be much we can do about that, unfortunately. I think the CD drive itself is SCSI. Certainly would appear to be, given the size of this ribbon cable that comes up to this edge connector here. And there are 50 pins on that, so it would certainly seem to be SCSI. When I took the CD drive out of this to repair the 3DO, I was fairly sure at the time I kept the logic board out of it, but I have hunted everywhere and I cannot find it. So either I put it somewhere really safe, or I must have binned it. Oh well. Unfortunately, as I say, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about that. Perhaps if I had another SCSI drive, I might be able to make up some sort of connector to, plug in here, but I don't have one just now, so there's nothing much we're going to be able to do about it. Right, let's just get the whole thing put back together, get the motherboard back in, get all the plastics back on, and let's see if it'll fire up. And speaking of the plastics, that's them after 3 days in the retrobraiding solution. They are a bit better, but still have quite a way to go. You can see the difference between there and there. Still are quite yellowed, but as I said earlier, the weather here at the minute just isn't great, so it's as best as we could do for now. I just have to get this thing finished. You can see it quite clearly still in this top cover. Difference between there and there. All back together. Let's just see if it works. Hooked up to this VGA monitor, and we're using the keyboard and mouse from the Mac Classic. This thing uses the ADB bus for keyboard and mouse, so those are ADB on the Mac Classic. Hopefully it's compatible with the Performa. And I think we can power it on just by pushing this button. That sounds good. Do we get video though? Indeed we do. Welcome to Macintosh. Our little VGA cable is obviously working. Nice clean picture. And there we are. The date and time is obviously wrong because we've removed that battery. I'll have to get a replacement battery to put in there. But let's see if we can't figure out maybe what this machine did in its past life, and take a look at what is installed on that hard drive. First of all though, about this Macintosh, running system software B1-7.5.1. Don't really know what that means, but I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. So it has built-in memory of 8 megabytes and total memory is 16. So that RAM stick that I thought was only 4 must actually be 8 meg. And then those other memory chips on the motherboard themselves must be 8 meg built in. The hard disk then, size 224 megabytes on disk, 235 used. So what's that? Total of what, about 460 megabyte hard drive, roughly. But let's see if we can figure out maybe what this machine did in a past life. Well, we have names of various schools here. Did this maybe belong to a teacher? Wedding. Information from someone's wedding. We're not going to go nosying around, just in case there's any photos or anything like that. We don't want to be putting that on YouTube. Christmas 95. I'm sure we can take a quick look at someone's Christmas card. Very nice. As I say, I don't want to be prying into too many personal files, and I will later go through this hard drive and delete any of this personal stuff. But given that it names two different primary schools here, I can't help but wonder, perhaps this belonged to a substitute teacher that would have been moving between schools and used this to develop work for the class. Just a guess. For applications though, Mavis Beacon. Gonna have a go at this, aren't we? This is the classroom. Here is where you'll practice what you've learned. Ooh. The next key you type will start the lesson. Once started, you may use the escape key to end the lesson early. Spacebar is not very good in this keyboard. That's really putting me to the test. Where's at? Up there. All the symbols are in a different location than I'm used to. Where's hash? Hash isn't on this keyboard. Escape, end the lesson, yes. Maybe you'll like the next lesson better. I'm not so sure about that. Millie's Math House. So seeing this would actually make you think that this machine stayed in a school.
Here are little, and big. I'm little, I need shoes. Small shoes.
I'm middle. A pair of shoes for me, please.
Medium shoes.
I'm big. I need shoes.
Large shoes.
Right, that's enough of that. Any other games on this machine? So seemingly there's a copy of Myst installed here, but I dare say without the CD drive, we're not going to be able to run this. Yep. Looking for the CD. What else have we got? Super Maze Wars. Sounds like a game. So, not really sure what this game is, but let's just give it a go. Prepare for battle. So seemingly we just fly our little ship around the maze and shoot any other ships that we come across, or they can shoot you. No sound in this game. Oh well. And dead again. I'm not very good at it, am I? And dead one more time. How do we get out of this? Well, that's pretty much all I have to show you today. I will keep an eye out for a CD drive for this machine. And it would be nice to maybe try and get an expansion card of some shape, form or another to fill one of those slots on the motherboard. A network card, I think, would be fairly handy. But at least with a CD drive, if I can find one, or if I can even just find that logic board, assuming I haven't threw it out. If we've got a CD drive in here, then we can actually use this thing to play some classic Macintosh games. Well, yep, that is it for this time. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video. If you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you're interested in all things Macintosh, I will leave a link in the video description to the MARCHintosh playlist. Then from there, you can certainly find your way to plenty more content on these machines. But that's it from me for now. See you next time.